Good day, future teachers. Hooray for reaching this far. But as what others say, this is just a beginning. Pre-board is a test on your future performance in the actual teacher board examination. Thus, you need to prepare today for tomorrow. To start with this session, I would like to present to you a conversation between two individuals. Their conversation goes this way. I told Try how to whistle, but I don't hear him whistling. I said I taught him. I didn't say he learned it. With this conversation, to you, our future teachers, what does this gives us? What does this implies? What do you think is the meaning of this? What do you think is the essence of this conversation as a future teacher? To you, our future teachers, this conversation gives us, presents to us the importance, the essence, the meaning, the concept of assessment. Thus, as a teacher, it is not only important that we teach our students, but we look into how far we have learned from what we have taught to them. So let's have start with this presentation with our first question. Miss Almeria is judging the work of the project of the students in her science class based on a set of criteria. What process describes what she is doing? A. Assessing. B. Evaluating. C. Measuring. D. Testing. Again, Miss Almeria is judging the work of the project of the students in her science class based on a set of criteria. What process describes what she is doing? A. Assessing. B. Evaluating. C. Measuring. D. Testing. And the correct answer is yes, it's evaluating. Why do we say it's evaluating? So the clue here, okay. So we have evaluation. What does it mean? Evaluation, it's the process of giving judgment to a performance. Again, we give value. We value. We give judgment. We rate. No, sorry. It's not we rate. Um, we interpret according to what the students have performed. So the situation says, so there is a clue, judging. So the clue, judging, gives us the answer to the term evaluating or evaluation. When we say assessment, it is the process of gathering information, evaluating, and at the same time measuring. So, what is the testing? Testing is the process of getting the information. There is also difference between testing and then the test. Test is the measurement. The material or the instrument used to test a specific skill, while the process of getting the information, that is testing. Assessing, that includes the process of gathering information, measuring, and at the same time evaluation. Measuring, that includes numeric. It's either numbers or numerals. We have numbers that is represented by letters. See, next item. Which term refers to the collection of students' products and accomplishments in a given period for evaluation purposes? A. Anecdotal record. B. Diet. C. Observation report. D. Portfolio. Again, which term refers to the collection of students' products and accomplishments in a given period for evaluation purposes. And the correct answer is ding, 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 ding. Correct answer is yes. It's a portfolio. Why? So as observed in we have mga projects, we called it portfolio, like collection of quizzes, collection of outputs, collection of laboratory reports. They are considered as portfolio. While an anecdotal record is a detailed descriptive narrative recorded after a specific behavior or interaction occurs. So this is a performance evaluating observation of an performance. So let's say for example, in what particular day a student was able to get the sum of one digit. Then in what particular day did that student have performed adding two digits. And at the same time, in what particular day that student have performed three digits addition. So that goes with the process. While diary, this is day-to-day basis or day-to-day performance of a student. Observation report, that's also a report. It's either a narrative or a checklist of what an assessor have observed in a particular task. Ayun. So we have a portfolio. Portfolio, that is the collection of students' performance over a period of time. Kung babalik po tayo nung elementary or high school, there are teachers who require us to collect the results of our quizzes. So that is an example of a portfolio. Next one. Ms. Macaulay uses alternative methods of assessment. Which of the following will she not likely use? A. Developing portfolios. B. Multiple choice tests. C. Oral presentation. D. Reflective journal writing. Again, Ms. Macaulay uses alternative methods of assessment. Which of the following will she not likely use? Developing portfolios, multiple choice tests, oral presentation, reflective journal writing. And the correct answer is multiple choice tests. When we say alternative methods, these are those methods, assessment tasks that are beyond paper pencil tests. When we say beyond, those that do not use or provides answer through or with a paper and pen. But I am not saying not all. Because let's say for example, essay. Essay is an example of an alternative methods of assessment. Okay? Even though that is paper and pen, but that is under the alternative method of assessment. The rest of the options, developing portfolios, oral presentation, and journal writing are under alternative methods. Let's proceed. If I have the most authentic method of assessment, which of these procedures should I consider? Objective assessment, performance-based assessment, traditional test, written test. Again, if I have to use the most authentic method of assessment, which of these procedures should I consider? Objective assessment, performance-based assessment, traditional assessment, or written test. And the correct answer is yes, it's a performance based assessment. So when we say again authentic method of assessment or the alternative assessment method of assessment that focuses on the performance. So among the choices or options, there is only one of them who refer to a performance or authentic, and that is that letter B, the performance-based assessment. Objective, traditional, and written. They are an example of paper and pencil method of assessment or the traditional method of assessment. Objective, that is, there is only one and only one answer for a particular question. Traditional, going back with what we have experienced in our early schoolings. So let's say, for example, during elementary, mostly of our tests was multiple choice. Written test. So not all written tests because, again, as I said earlier, say is also an authentic. But the question is, which of these is the most authentic? So therefore, the answer is performance-based assessment. In the context of the theory of multiple intelligence, which is the weakness of the paper pencil test. A. It is not easy to administer. B. It lacks reliability. C. It puts non-linguistically intelligent at a disadvantage. D. It utilizes so much time. Again, in the context of the theory of multiple intelligence, which is a weakness of the paper pencil test, it is not easy to administer. It lacks reliability, puts non-linguistically intelligent at a disadvantage. It utilizes so much time. And the correct answer is, why did we say so? In the theory of multiple intelligence, that includes those who are linguistic and then non-linguistic. So what will happen for those who are non-linguistic? What will happen for those who are linguistic? So when we say if the test is more on essay, this case, this will be an advantage for those who are good at memorization. But knowing nowadays that we teachers should consider individual differences. That means we have to construct an assessment that would be beneficiable for all students and not only for a specific student. Miss Infermo is doing an assessment of learning. At what stage of instruction should she do it? After instruction, before instruction, during instruction, prior to instruction. So the answer was shown, so that is after. What do we mean by assessment of learning? Assessment of learning happens every after a discussion, every after a chapter, every after a lesson. An example of this one is a long quiz, chapter test, long examinations, major examinations. They are an example of assessment of learning. Such assessments happen every after the instruction. Before instruction, this includes diagnostic tests, pre-test. So these are an example of an assessment. During, we have the formative. What is the function of formative? Formative, that is to assess our students if they were able to follow our instruction, if they were able to follow our discussion. So that is formative. Prior to instruction, that is the same as before instruction. So that is the reason why the answer is after instruction. Let's proceed with the next item. Okay, so assessment of learning occurs every after instruction, such as summative test or the like. Summative test, chapter test, long quizzes, major examinations, okay? At the beginning of the school year, the 6-year-old pupils were tested to find out who among them can already read. The results was used to determine their sections. What kind of test was given to them? Diagnostic, formative, placement, or summative. Again, at the beginning of the school year, the 6-year-old pupils were tested to find out who among them can already read. The results was used to determine their sections. What kind of test was given to them? Diagnostic, formative, placement, or summative. And the correct answer is yes, that is placement. Diagnostic is used to identify the weakness of a particular student. Formative is used when we assess if our students can follow, while summative is used if our students to assess how far they have learned, while placement is an assessment where our purpose for giving such assessment is for placing them for a particular area. For this situation, the grade, no, no. So the 6-year-old pupils were tested to find out who of them can already read. Because, or maybe, those who can fully read words will be in the first section. For those who can read moderately, maybe at the middle section. And those who needs more will be on the last section. It's the same as for the first year students, especially those who are incoming first year students. We have this so-called uh, university entrance examination. So in that examination, the result will give us the information if who of them will qualify to be placed on BSED program or BEd program or BSFI program or BS Criminology program. So that test will give us the information if they will qualify for such place or position. So we have here diagnostic. Diagnostic overlooks weaknesses of the learners. The same as when we go to hospital, before we will be operated, the doctor will diagnose first. That is check if which of or if what is the problem in our body. Okay, it is very what's this? That is very what's it's not good that we will operate directly our clients without looking at which or what is the problem behind such. Next, formative. Formative, this helps to monitor learning progress. So, diba? So if we during discussion, our teachers or your teachers keep on asking. Example of this is during oral recitation, mga on the spot, mga questions. These are an example of formative assessment. And summative assesses overall learning. So as I said, chapter test, summative test, long quizzes, major examinations, periodical tests. These are examples of summative tests or summative assessment. Placement. So this is placement assesses entry performance of the learners. As what I have said earlier, our institution has this so-called placement assessment. That is through the entrance examination. The entry performance of the learners or incoming freshmen is being evaluated by the main campus or by campus, and then they give us the information if they qualify. If they qualify, then they will be given a slot for the program they opt to enroll. What type of validity does the pre-board examination possess if its result can explain how the students will likely perform in their actual licensure examination? I have mentioned this earlier. We have concurrent, construct, content, or predictive. Again, what type of validity does the pre-board examination possess if its result can explain how the students will likely perform in their licensure examination? Concurrent, construct, consent, predictive. The correct answer is it's predictive. When we say predictive, from the root word predict, guess, look forward, vision, whatever or what or how you will perform today would most likely will be the performance on the actual. Concurrent. Concurrent is an assessment or an ability which looks into your knowledge for this day. Construct, that is the instrument should be constructed based on a particular or a focus. So let's say for example, you are math, then the assessment should focus on math. If you are science, then the assessment should focus on science. Next, we have the content. Content is based on what you have discussed. Mostly used validity is the content. Content, since we assess our students based on what we have discussed, based on what we have presented to them. So that is content. Ms. Macaulay wants to establish the reliability of her achievement test in English. Which of the following activities will help her achieve her purpose? Again, Ms. Macaulay wants to establish the reliability of her achievement test in English. Which of the following activities will help achieve her purpose? Administer a single test but two different groups of students. Administer two different sets but to the same group of students. administer two equivalent tests to the same group of students, administer two parallel tests to different groups of students. And the answer for this item is yun. Administer two equivalent tests to the same group of students. So when we talk about reliability, that is uh, being consistent in terms of the answers. How consistent is the answer of our students? That is the essence of reliability. The validity, the essence of or the truthfulness of a certain instrument. How true or simply validity we assess what we value or simply whatever we have discussed, it should be on the assessment. While in the reliability, that is the consistency of the answer of our student. So why C? When we say equivalent test, it is different instrument but with the same content or lessons in that examination, and at the same time the same level of difficulty, but they will be or they will differ on the way of questioning, but the concept, the content, and the level of difficulty should be the same so that we can assess or evaluate if there is a consistency of the answer of that group of students. Kasi kung if we give two different sets, we cannot identify the consistency since we give them different questions. Same with we have single tests but to two different groups. We cannot identify the consistency since the answers came from different group of students. Same with letter D, parallel test to different group of students. So A, B, and D is not or do not fall under reliability. So let's proceed with the next item. Mr. Vivo is doing a performance-based assessment for the day's lesson. Which of the following is the most or will most likely to happen? Students are evaluated based on varied evidences of learning. Students are evaluated in one setting. Students are evaluated in the most objective manner. Students do an actual demonstration of their skill. Mr. Vivo is doing a performance-based assessment for today's lesson. Which of the following will most likely to happen? Students are evaluated based on their varied evidences of learning. Students are evaluated in one setting. Students are evaluated in the most objective manner. Students do an actual demonstration of their skill. And the answer is students do an actual demonstration of their skill. Again, clue is performance-based assessment. So when we say performance-based assessment, that is focuses on the psychomotor, more on actions, more on applications of what we have learned from that day's lesson or from that lesson. So therefore, of the choices, even though letter A might be, because we also talk about performance-based assessment, and with that varied evidences of learning, that might fall portfolio. But the question is most likely to happen, so that is for letter D, an actual demonstration of what we have learned. Let's proceed with the next item. Who among the teachers described below is doing an assessment? Mr. Balo, who is counting the scores obtained by the students in his test. Mr. Bermoy, who is computing the final grade of the students after completing all their requirements. Miss Helio, who is planning for a remedial instruction after knowing that students perform poorly in her test. Miss Issue, who is administering a test to her students. Who among the teachers described below is doing assessment? Mr. Valo, who is counting the scores obtained by the students in his test. Mr. Bermoy, who is computing the final grade of the students after completing all their requirements. Miss Helio, who is planning for a remedial instruction after knowing that students perform poorly in her test. Miss Issue, who is administering a test to her students. And the correct answer is, okay, so we have letter B. Mr. Bermoy, who is computing the final grade of the students after completing all their requirements. Again, what I have said earlier, assessment that includes not only the process, but measurement and then evaluation. So Mr. Bermoy is now doing on the evaluation after completing all the requirements. While letter A, Mr. Balo, Sir Balo, is simply doing measurement. Measurement since it's counting the scores. Miss Helio, planning, so that is already evaluation. It's evaluation alone. Then letter D, that is gathering information pa lang siya. So that is testing. Yun. So assessment, that is the process of gathering, collecting, organizing, and evaluating the present state of mind of every learner. So again, that is not only a process of gathering, but that includes collecting, organizing, and then evaluating. Who among the teachers below performed a diagnostic assessment? Mr. Cadavis, who gave a short quiz when discussing thoroughly the lesson, determining the programs of learning. Ms. Caputilia, who asked questions when the discussions was going on to know who among her students understood what she was trying to emphasize. Ms. Cinco, who gave a 10-item test to find out the specific lessons which the students failed to understand. Ms. Helio, who administered the readiness test to the incoming grade 1 pupils. Who among the teachers below performed a diagnostic assessment? Mr. Cadavis will give a short quiz when discussing thoroughly the lesson to determine the programs of learning. Miss Capotilia, who asked questions when the discussions was going on to know who among the students understood what she was trying to emphasize. Miss Cinco, who gave 10-item tests to find out the specific lessons which the students failed to understand. Miss Liu, who administered the readiness test to the incoming grade 1 pupils. And the answer is yes, it's Miss Cinco. Miss Cinco is trying to find out what the students have not understood before she will proceed with the discussion. Maybe her purpose is to find out where will she proceed with the discussion, or where will she give importance on the discussion, on which part of the topic will she give an importance of giving more time of discussing the topic. Mr. Cadavis, that is summative, or yes, summative. And then Miss Capotilia, that is formative. Formative since the clue there is ask questions when the discussion was going on. So formative siya since her purpose is simply to identify or to look at if her students can follow the discussion. Then Miss Helio is doing the placement. Next item, which is wrong to assume about traditional assessment. It can assess fairly all the domains of intelligence of an individual. It can assess individuals at the same time. It can assess individuals objectively. It is easier to administer than performance tests. Again, which is wrong to assume about traditional assessment. It can assess fairly all the domains of intelligence of an individual. It can assess individuals at the same time. It can assess individuals objectively. It is easier to administer than performance tests. And the answer is it can assess fairly all domains of intelligence of an individual. Why wrong? So when we say traditional, again, traditional is more on objective type or more on paper and pencil tests. So with that, how can it be fair if your student is not that intelligent in terms of memorization, but intelligent more on practical tests? Because we cannot deny the fact that there are individuals who are good at practical, who are good at working at hand or on hand compared to working it with the pen, with the pencil, with simply memorizing. So there are students that in that type. Okay? Individuals can be assessed at the same time. Yes, very common. Let's say, for example, during the major examinations, paper and pencil type of exams, or one good example during let, di ba? There are different individuals, but you are assessed at the same time. The same instrument, assessment instrument, but assessed at the same time. Third, assess individuals objectively. Traditional is objective. Objective in terms of assessing, while alternative or the authentic is more on subjective. Objective and subjective. D, easier to administer. That is very common. And that's an example of this letter D is during the examination, during the let exam, di ba? There are different of you who can be assessed at the same time compared to a performance test. Magpapa-perform ka o saanay ka group, then follow the next group, next group, next group. That will take time. Okay? So let's proceed with the next item. Mr. Lumpas wants to determine if the student's scores in their final test is reliable. Again, reliable. However, he has only one set of tests, and then students are already in vacation. What test of reliability can he employ? Equivalent forms. Order Richardson method. Test retest. Test retest with equivalent forms. Again, Mr. Lumpas wants to determine if the student's scores in their final test is reliable. However, he has only one set of tests and these students are already on vacation. What test of reliability can he employ? Equivalent forms for the Richardson method. Teach test retest, test retest with equivalent forms. And the answer is Coder Richardson method or the parallel. When we say parallel, that is an example kanina wherein in the test of reliability, it should be on the same set of students. In this Coder Richardson method, there is only one set of instrument, but that is divided into two. Let's say, for example, 10 items, 20 items, or the number of items should be divisible by 2. So, tendency is the items, let's say for example, 1 and 2, they should have the same topic, they should have the same level of difficulty, but they should have different question. Same as with 3 and 4, same content, same level of difficulty, but different question. So with that case, 1 and 3 will be on one group, 2 and 4 will be in the other group. So they are divided into two. Then with that, we can use Code-Richardson method. Equivalent forms, these are two different sets of instruments, but they are of the same content and the same level of difficulty, but they have different questions. For test retest, this is common. We have you will be tested first, then maybe after a month or a week, then the same test will be given to the same students, group of students. And same with letter D. So that is why Coder Richardson method is the answer for this situation. Next item. What will be your action to an item with 80% difficulty and high discriminating item? Discard, reject, revise, retain. Again, what will be your action to an item with 80% difficulty and high discriminating item? Discard, reject, retain, revise. And the correct answer is it is revise. Why revise? So, and difficulty, we have four. Sorry, there are five. Five interpretation. First, that is 0 to yes, we have 0 to 20%. That will be discard. So the action for that is discard. 21 to 40, that is revise. Then 41 to 60, that is retain. 61 to 80, that is revise. And then 81 to 100% in the difficulty, that is to discard or reject. Yan. So, this is shown to you. For difficulty, we have 0 to 20, that is to be rejected or discard. 21 to 40, that is to be revised. 41 to 60, that is to retain. 61 to 80, that is to be revised. And 81 to 100, that is to be rejected. So 80% refers to revise. And for high discriminating item, for the discriminating we have high, very high, moderate, low, and very low. So we also have 5 for that discrimination. Ayan. We also have for discriminating, very high discriminating, moderate discriminating, low discriminating, very low discriminating. So the interpretation for that one, or the action I mean, for VH or very high, we have to reject, discard. High, that is revise. Moderate, retain. Low, revise. Very low is to reject or to discard. So all you have to do when they are at the same, or you have to decide for a particular item which refers to the difficulty and discriminating item, you have to look at if they have the same action. If they have the same action, then the action will be that will be the action for the item. But if you have different actions, let's say for example, the difficulty is to be retained while the discriminating item is to be revised. So with that, you have to use another process where there is a formula for that one. Then the result will be used and will be um, interpreted using this table or this difficulty um, parameter. For this item, high discriminating is to be revised. 80% difficulty is to be revised. Since they both are to be revised, then therefore, the action for this item is to be revised. And I hope it is clear. So how or when or how we are going to decide on a particular item, or how are we going to decide what will be our decision. Okay, let's proceed with our next item. What conclusion will be derived to a 10 item instrument with 0.74 reliability coefficient? Shows remarkably consistent, remarkably inconsistent, very remarkably consistent, very remarkably inconsistent. Again, what conclusion will be derived to 10 item instrument with 0.74 reliability coefficient? And the answer goes yan. So again, remarkably consistent. From 0 to 100 or 0.0 to 1.0. 0 as the inconsistent, very remarkably inconsistent, to 1.0 as very remarkably consistent. Meaning, mostly of the items were answered consistently. Meaning, whatever the answer of that group of students in the first trial is the same answer that they give for mostly of the items in the second trial. And when correlated, and that results to remarkably consistent. And next one. Two sections have the same mean, but the standard deviation of the section 2 is higher than section 1. Which of the two sections is more homogeneous? Section 1, section 2, both or none. Again, two sections have the same mean, but the standard of deviation of section 2 is higher than section 1. Which of the two sections is more homogeneous? And the correct answer is yes, because when we talk about standard deviation, that is on how spread, how far is the result of the students. Mean that is the average, while deviation is the distance between or the scores between the students. If the section 2 is higher, meaning there is a higher gap between the scores of the students. Section 1 is lower, then that means Section 1 is more homogeneous compared to Section 2. Let's proceed with the next item. Item number 5 in a 50 item test was taken by 20 students. 12 of them answered correctly the item. How difficult is the item? Difficult, easy, very difficult, very easy. Again, item number 5 in a 50 item test which was taken by 20 students. 12 of them answered correctly the item. How difficult is the answer? Difficult, easy, very difficult, very easy. And the correct answer is yan, we have easy. Bakit kaya easy? So we have the following formula, which we have denoted A as the number of students who got an correct answer, and B, total number of assessed students. So the formula for that one is A over B. So for this situation, we have 12 over 20. But again, the A should be incorrect. So how many got incorrect answers? 20 minus 12, so that is 8. So 8 over 20. 8 over 20 is equivalent to 0.4. Ayan. Then, after which, we will look at the table of parameter. So we have this one, and ayan. Asan si 40? 40 is nasa pangalawa from the top. 21% to 40%. So since the answer for this one is 40% and that is to be revised, then the question is how difficult is the item? And therefore the answer is not difficult but it is easy. Okay? I hope it is clear. Let's now proceed to next item. In a second item analysis, Mr. Managbanag found out that more from the lower group got the test item 15 correctly. What does this mean? In a second item analysis, Mr. Managbanag found out that more from the lower group got the test item 15 correctly. What does this mean? The item has become more reliable. The item has become more valid. The item has a negative discriminating power. The item has a positive discriminating power. And the answer is, yan. Bakit siya negative discriminating? Ang sabi sa situation, more from the lower group. Meaning, the item is very, very easy in such a way that the item or the students from the lower group answered more or correctly on that item 15. Positive, that is if mostly from the upper group. Okay? Mr. Kalamayat asked students to show how to play basketball. What learning target is he assessing? knowledge, products, reasoning skills. Mr. Kalamaya tasks students to show how to play basketball. What learning target is he assessing? Knowledge, products, reasoning skills. And the answer for this item, very obvious. And the answer is letter. Right. So, syempre, it's on the skills. It's beyond knowledge. Yes, they have the knowledge, but the most important is the skill. Because there are some who has the knowledge but do not know how to perform such skill. Okay? Next item. The students are to be judged individually on their mastery of the singing of the national anthem. So their teacher let them sing individually. What should the teacher use in rating the performance of the pupils considering the fact that the teacher has only one period to spend in evaluating his 20 pupils? Analytic, holistic, either or neither. Neither. And the correct answer is holistic assessment is used when we are running out of time. It is used when we look at in general, analytic if we are looking into the specific skills performed by the students. Okay? So analytic is very specific while holistic is in general, the overall performance or yun na, kabugusan. Next one. Ms. Almeria made an essay test. For the objective, identify the planets in the solar system. Was the assessment method used to, was the assessment method used the most appropriate for the given objective? Why? Again, Ms. Almeria made an essay test for the objective identify the planets in the solar system. Was the assessment method used the most appropriate for the given objective? Why? Yes. Is it test? Again, A. Because say test can measure any type of objective. Because say test is easier to construct an objective test. Now, she should have conducted oral questioning. No, she should have prepared an objective test. And the answer for this item is identification is more on objective. We identify a certain planet, then the answer is objective. Whatever will be is asked, then there is a specific answer. There is an answer for every question. Once identifying, identification is the type of or the objective of the lesson. So therefore, is that the most appropriate assessment method for the given objective. Even though B is easier to construct, yes, it's easier, but you are not on the same way with the objective is trying to present or trying to give to your students. Next item. What should be done to the item with 80%, 28% discriminating and 57% difficulty? Discard, reject, retain, revise. Again, what should be done to the item with 28% discriminating and 57% difficult? Discard, reject, revise. And the answer is, ayan, we have retain. Bakit retain? Ayan. So, kung bakit retain. Sa taas na parameter, we have very high 0 to 10%, high 11 to 20%, moderate 21 to 30%, low 31 to 40%, and very low 41 to 50%. On the situation or the STEM, we have 28% discriminating, 28 falls to moderate. Moderate, that is 21% to 30%. So, looking at the action that is to be retained, same as with the difficulty, 57% sa baba na parameter, we have 0 to 20, 21 to 40, 41 to 60. 57 falls under 41 to 60. And the action for that is to retain. So again, when we decide, we have to decide directly if they have the same action. The discrimination and then the difficulty. If they have the same action, then that action will be the action for the item. So, for 28% discriminating is retained, 57% difficulty is retained, and therefore, the item will be retained. I hope it is clear. Let's proceed with the next item. Goring performed better than 65% of the total number of examinees in the district achievement test. What is their percentile rank? Goring performed better than 65% of the total number of examinees in the district achievement test. What is his percentile rank? P35, P65, P66, P75. And the correct answer is yan. So, whatever the percentage is, he is better than the number of the examinees, and that is his percentile rank. So let's say, for example, a Turing is or perform better than, let's say, 10% of the total number, then his percentile rank is P10. Let's say if he is 95% better or he is better than the 95% of the total examiners, then that is P95. Next item. Which among the following questions indicate a norm reference interpretation? Norm reference. How does a pupil's test performance in reading mathematics compare? How does a pupil's test performance in our school compare with that of other schools? What type of remedial work will be most helpful for a slow learning pupil? Which pupils have achieved master of computational skills? Which of the following questions indicate a norm reference interpretation? A. How does a pupil's test performance in reading and mathematics compare? B. How does the pupil's test performance in our school compare with that of other schools? C. What type of remedial work will be most helpful for a slow learning pupil? D. Which pupils have achieved master of computational skills? And the answer is, how does this pupil's test performance in our school compare with that of other schools? When we say norm, that is in general. General performance of the pupil's test result will be compared to with other schools. Aside from norm, we also have criterion reference. When we say criterion, that is very specific, that is according to criteria. So, ayun. And that is only, so let's say for example, letter A. How does a pupil's test performance in reading and mathematics compare? That may be considered for criterion. Let's proceed with the next item. After doing the exercise on verbs, Mr. Balog gave a short quiz to find out how well students have understood the lesson. What type of assessment was done? Diagnostic, formative, placement, summative. After doing the exercise on verbs, Mr. Balog gave short quiz to find out how well students have understood the lesson. What type of assessment was done? Diagnostic, formative, placement, summative. And the correct answer is, the clue there is how well the students have understood the lesson. Anong ginawa niya? Short quiz. Diba? There are teachers who give a short quiz if you were able to follow the discussion. Diagnostic again, that is to identify lang the weakness of your students. Placement, that is if you have to place somebody from a certain position. Summative, that is after everything or topics have been discussed. You are assessing for learning. Which of these would you like to do? Assessing the strengths and weaknesses of students, giving grades to students, recommending new policies in grading students, reporting to parents the performance of their child. You are assessing for learning. Which of these would you like to do? Assessing the strengths and weaknesses of students, giving grades to students, recommending new policies in grading students, reporting to parents the performance of their child. The correct answer is, ayan, it's assessing the strengths and weaknesses of the students. Assessing for learning happens before the instruction. That is, we have an example of that one, formative assessment. Formative. Also includes diagnostic. Diagnostic happens before the instruction. Strengths and weaknesses, this is diagnostic. So this is falls under assessment for learning. In a normal distribution, which of the following is true? Mean, median, mode are equivalent. Mean and median are equivalent but not the mode. Median and mode are equivalent but not the mean. Mean, median, and mode are not equivalent. In a new normal distribution, which of the following is true? Mean, median, mode are equivalent. Mean, median are equivalent but not the mode. Median and mode are equivalent but not the mean. Mean, median, and mode are not equivalent. And the correct answer is okay. When we look into the new normal distribution, so everything are equal. Mean, median, and then mode. If they are not equal, and that would depend, it could be positively or negatively skewed distribution. That will be later. Ayan, sinasabi ko. Positive or negatively skewed. What does this figure indicate? Median is less than the mode, greater than the mean. Mode, less than the mean, less than the median. Mode, greater than the mean, greater than the median. None of the above. Which of the following or what does the figure indicate? Median is lesser than the mode, which is greater than the mean. Mode, less than the mean, less than the median. Mode, greater than the mean, greater than the median. None of the above. The correct answer is okay. Ano meron dyan? Median is less than the mode. Yung mode, yan yung pinaka mataas. Pinaka mahabang vertical lines. And the center is the median. And lastly is the mean. Anyway, later there is another figure. Yan. What does the figure indicate? Mean, mode, median. Mean, mode, median, mean, mode, median. So one clue, yung pinakamahaba, siya yung mode. Okay, the correct answer is yan. Mode, again, is ang pinakamahaba, while in between the two is the median, which is lesser than the mode, and the mode is what I mean, the mean, which is lesser than the median. I hope it's clear. Okay, we also have another figure. This figure shows a normal distribution. When we say normal distribution, everything are equal. The mean, the median, and the mode. Looking at the illustration, there is only one broken line. That means the mean, median, and mode are in that line where they are equal. What does this mean? A. Equal means equal standard deviations. B. Equal means and equal standard deviations. C. Unequal means equal standard deviations. D. Unequal means unequal standard deviations. And the correct answer is letter. Naunay pakpak. Letter B. That is equal means but unequal standard deviation. Ano si standard deviation sa illustration? The standard deviation illustrates how wide is and base and curve. Diba? Looking at the figure, we have two different figures. One is medyo closer and the other one is mas wider. Meaning, ang score hadin na masataas na figure is more homogeneous compared to the second figure. Meaning, the scores are more or maybe close to each others, while the second is agrayo and scores. I hope it is clear. Next item. In a negatively skewed distribution, which of the following statements is true? Mean is lower than the mode. Median is higher than the mode. Mode is lower than the mean. Mode is lower than the median. In a negatively skewed distribution, which of the following statements is true? Mean is lower than the mode. Median is higher than the mode. Mode is mode is lower than the mean. Mode is lower than the median. And the answer is mean is lower than the mode. Bakit? When we say negatively skewed, kung mabalik kitang figure kanina, ang pinakadapo is adiha right side. Okay? Inihiya na figure is an example of a negatively skewed. Meaning, a negative nga side hiya naghabubo. Okay? That is negatively skewed. Ano sa liwat nga figure is positively skewed. Positively skewed, that is hiya na figure. This figure is a positively skewed. Okay? That implies that the scores are lower compared to this figure. That implies the scores are higher, or most of the students pass the test. So ano meron dito? Si mode pinakamataas, si median sa gitna, mean pinaka maliit. And going back sa item dito, in a negatively skewed distribution, which is true, ano meron kanina? Pinakamataas, si mode. Sa gitna, median. Lower, pinakamababa is si mean. Ayan. So, among these options, the correct answer is mean is lower than the mode. Yan, si mean. Mean ang pinakamaliit sa lahat. I hope it was clear. Next item. Mr. Baligedo, a secondary school teacher in math, found out that many of his students got very high scores in his test. What measure of central tendency should he use to describe their average performance in the subject? Mean, median, mode, range. Mr. Baliedo, a secondary school teacher in math, found out that many of his students got very high scores in the test. What measure of central tendency should he use to describe the average performance in the subject? Mean, median, mode, range. The correct answer is yan, we have that mode. Mode will be used if most of the scores are higher or yes, I or got the very high scores. Next one. Okay, same negatively skewed distribution. Which of the following statements are true? The following statements are true except mean is lower than the mode. Mean is not higher than the median. Median is lower than the mode. Mode is less than the median. The correct answer is it's a oh, okay. Yan. Mode is less than the median. Bakit? Di ba kanina pinakita yung yung mababang scores on the negative side. That is negatively skewed. Ano meron doon? Pinakamataas si mode. Nasa gitna si median. And lastly, pinakamababa si mean. Letter A, mean is lower than the mode. That's correct. Mean is not higher than the median, meaning mean is lower than the median. That is also correct. Median is lower than the mode, which is correct. And therefore, letter D is not correct because this statement under or falls under positively skewed. Okay? Positively skewed distribution. Next item. Mr. Limberio administered the test to his class and the result is positively skewed. Ayun. What kind of test do you think Mr. Limberio gave to his students? What kind kaya? A. Criterion reference. B. Mastery test. C. Pre-test. D. Post-test. Positively skewed, meaning most of the scores are low. Mababa ang mga scores. What type of test kaya ito? Criterion, mastery, pre-test, post-test. Therefore, the answer for this item is letter. That is pre-test. When we say pre-test, these are those tests given before the start of the discussion. Post-test is given after a series of instruction based on the pre-test. Mastery test and criteria reference tests are done every after the discussion. So that would mean then A, B, and then D will give us a negatively skewed result. So it's only the pre-test that will give us positively skewed. Most of the scores will be lower. Next item. The result of a test given by teacher Lumpas showed a negatively skewed distribution. What kind of test did teacher Lumpas give? Difficult, easy, moderately difficult, not too easy nor too difficult. The result of the test given by teacher Lumpas showed a negatively skewed distribution. What kind of test did teacher Lumpas give? Difficult, easy, moderately difficult, not too easy nor too difficult. And the correct answer for this item is no other than but letter B. When we say negatively skewed, most of the scores are high. Meaning, lahat ng mostly of the students got perfect or most of the students passed the test or most of the students look at or perceive the test as easy lang. It's not difficult. So, negatively skewed happens if the test is easy. Positively skewed if the test is difficult. I hope it's clear. When the distribution is skewed to the right, what kind of test was administered? Ayan, sabi ko na kanina, averagely or moderately difficult. Difficult, easy or partly difficult. Skewed to the right. Therefore, the answer for this item is letter. Skewed to the right or positively skewed. Diba? When we say positively skewed or skewed to the right, that is most of the scores is below the average. Below average. So meaning, mostly of the students did not pass the test. Diba? Let's say for example, sa pretest ni Sir Olimberio kanina na situation, mostly of his students got lower scores. What does it imply? The test was difficult. I hope it's clear. Next item. In a positively skewed distribution, what kind of students does Teacher Jordan have? Ano meron kaya? Average, hetero, very good, very poor. Again, in a positively skewed distribution, what kind of students does Teacher Jordan have? Average, heterogeneous, very good, very poor. When we say positively skewed, mostly of the scores are below average. Below average. So meaning, the students of Teacher Jordan are ayun, very poor. We don't know the real story, but unfortunately, the scores illustrated turn to positively skewed distribution. And that means the students are very poor for that topic or assessment task. What is implied by positively skewed scores distribution? Ayan, inulit-ulit na lang. Most of the scores are high. Most of the scores are low. The mean, median, and mode are equal. The mode is high. Anong implication nun? Implication of the positively skewed distribution. The correct answer for this item is most of the scores are low. Positively skewed meaning most of the scores are below average. below average, meaning most of the scores are low. For letter A, most of the scores are high. That is negatively skewed. For letter C, mean, median, mode are equal. That is for normal distribution. Okay? The mode is high. Ano yan? Negatively skewed. Okay? So we have most of the scores are low. I hope it's clear. Which statement about performance-based assessment is false? Essay tests are an example of a performance-based assessment. It accentuates on process as well as product. It also stresses doing, not only knowing. It emphasizes merely process. Which statement about performance-based assessment is false? Essay tests are an example of performance-based assessment. It accentuates on process as well as products. It also stresses doing, not only knowing. It emphasizes merely process. And the correct answer for this item is letter. Emphasizes merely process. When we say performance-based assessment, it is more, not merely. Morely process. M-O, not M-E. Okay? Because performance, that is actual presentation. So, sa actual presentation, pinakamahalaga is the process. The process on how the students will perform or execute a particular skill. Next item. Based on averaging grading system, what will be the final grade of student C? And his grades in the four grading periods are as follows: 80, 78, 82, 80, 79, 80, 81, 82. Based on the averaging grading system, what will be the final grade of student C? When his grades in the four grading periods are as follows: 80, 78, 82, 80, 79, 80, 81, 82. And the correct answer for this item is letter 80. Letter B. Bakit sa letter B? Simply get the sum of the four grades and divide it by 4. Get the sum and the average. Get the average of that 4 grading periods. Getting the sum will give us 320. 320 divided by 4, then it will give us the result of 80. And therefore, the average grade of that student C is equivalent to 80. Next item tayo. Mr. Senardo's grading is based on the normal curve, and thus students' performance is compared to the performance of others. What kind of grading is he using if he assigns quarter grades based on the normal curve? Authentic assessment, criterion reference grading, informal assessment, norm reference grading. Mr. Sinado's grading is based on the normal curve and the student performance is compared to the performance of others. What kind of grading is he using if he assigns quarter grades based on the normal curve? And the correct answer for this item is letter E. That is norm reference grading. Bakit norm? Norm kasi that is clue comparison. General performance compared with the other performance. Okay? Criterion that is very specific. Kung ano lang ipinakita niya, yun lang ang pagbabasihan. That is not or that is in contrast to norm. Okay? Next one. Miss Kaminok is planning to do an assessment of learning. Which of these should she include in her plan, considering her purpose for assessment? Again, Miss Kaminok is planning to do an assessment of learning. Which of these should she include in her plan, considering her purpose for assessment? How to certify students' achievement, how to design one's instruction, how to determine the area of interest of learners, how to give immediate feedback to students' strengths and weaknesses. And the correct answer for this item is letter A. How to certify students' achievement. Bakit siya ganito? Assessment of learning, we are looking into the achievement of our students. How far they have learned from our discussion. Hanggang saan ang kaniyang natutunan. Hanggang saan ang kaniyang pwedeng maipakita base po sa ating mga itinuro. Okay? Well, let's proceed with the next item. You targeted that after instruction, your students should be able to show their ability to solve problems with speed and accuracy. You design a tool to measure this ability. What principle of assessment did you consider in this situation? Assessment should be based on clear and appropriate learning targets or objectives. Assessment should be fair. It should also be reliable. It should have a positive consequence on students' learning. You targeted that after instruction, your students should be able to show their ability to solve problems with speed and accuracy. Then, you then design a tool to measure this ability. What principle of assessment did you consider in this situation? Assessment should be based on clear and appropriate learning targets or objectives. Assessment should be fair. Assessment should be reliable. Assessment should have a positive consequence on students' learning. And the answer for this item is no other than but letter A. Assessment should be based on clear and appropriate learning targets or objectives. Okay? So, in creating or designing an assessment tool, it is very important to take or to note or to consider our objective. Okay? So dapat yung assessment natin is based on what we wanted them to execute after a certain or a process of instruction. Okay, I hope this is clear. Next one. Under which assumption is portfolio assessment based? Individual learner is adequately characterized by test score. An individual learner is inadequately characterized by a test score. Assessment should stress the reproduction of knowledge. Portfolio assessment is a dynamic assessment. Again, under which assumption is portfolio assessment based? An individual learner is adequately characterized by a test score. An individual learner is inadequately characterized by a test score. Assessment should stress the reproduction of knowledge. Portfolio assessment is a dynamic assessment. And the answer for this item is no other than but letter. Letter B. An individual learner is inadequately characterized by a test score. Okay? Bakit may portfolio assessment? Kasi we believe that learners is not enough to be tested through a test score. Why? First, the very common or the common reason why hindi siya parang valid yung test score in terms of reliability and validity of the score, or simply plagiarism. Zile 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 yo alergyal mile 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 mile. Yan. Because of the so-called plagiarism. Okay? So, siya yung nagbibigay ng dahilan kung bakit minsan hindi ka panipaniwala ang test scores. You may be perfect in certain tests, but that doesn't mean you got the skill or the knowledge. Yes, you may have the knowledge, but how about on its practical or on the application side? One's essence of a portfolio assessment was in the application. Okay? So it is inadequately characterized by a test score. And let's proceed with the next item. Which item statements represent criterion referenced interpretation? Alvin did better in solving the linear equation than 80% of representative algebra students. Alvin scores indicates that he is able to solve about two-thirds of all one-variable linear equations. Students who have reached Alvin's level on linear equations usually succeed in the subsequent unit on simultaneous equations with special help or extra time. All of the above, which statements represent criterion reference interpretation. And the correct answer for this item is no other than Bob. Ayan. So when we say criterion reference interpretation, the performance of a particular student is being evaluated or interpreted based on what he have done based on criteria. Okay? For this item, it is focused only on the performance of Elvin on the concept or topic linear equations. Or maybe the objective for this item is solving linear or one variable linear equations. For letter A, that is norm because there are comparisons. Same as with letter C, there is a comparison between Elvin's performance with the other students. And I think this is my last slide or item for this subject. And I hope that you have learned what I wanted you to learn. I hope you have acquired or refreshed your knowledge about the subject assessment of learning. And for the last message, okay, as a future teachers, or soon will take the examination. First thing first of the pre-board exam. Sa pre-board, this is serious since your situation is crucial. Your situation is in the new normal. New normal na siya. So, kailangan more concentration of learning the topics and not simply learning but aiming to top the actual board examination. And that would be all. Hooray, future teachers, and God bless. God bless. Thank you and mabuhay.